Hey everybody, it's Nikki and welcome back to another speed build. Today we are building this cute little home in The Sims 4. I really want to call it a tiny home because I was inspired by a tiny home when building it, but unfortunately by Sims 4 standards, it is not a tiny home because of the decks that I had to add just to get the look that I wanted. So unfortunately, it is not actually a tiny home. It is just a cute little home. But since it is so small on the inside, I really wanted to maximize the outside space as much as I can. So as you can see, we have the big porch up front. I have a deck out back, and then there's also a patio and a fire pit that will end up back there. So they have plenty of outdoor space on their tiny little 20 by 15 lot to live their little tiny house dreams, even though it is not actually a tiny house and you will unfortunately not get the perks. I know that kind of defeats the purpose of living in a small home, especially since this home is not particularly cheap either. But I wasn't going for particularly cheap, and I also wasn't going for particularly tiny, even though it is a very small home. I didn't want to restrict myself to making it a tiny home. Once again, because I wanted to have the porch and the deck, which is very difficult to do when you are restricted to only 100 tiles max for a small home. Anyway, now as our build is starting to come together here and I actually have something to talk about, you can see that I sort of went for a very simple monochrome black and white on the outside. I didn't want to do too much to muddy it. I just wanted small little pops of color, like with the planters hanging from the ceiling there. I thought that was so cute, and I thought that those little pops of color were enough. So, other than that, I wanted to keep it very simple, very black and white, very clean looking. So as you can see, I'm now working on the back, which honestly was probably my favorite part of the build to put together, even though just like the rest of the build, it is very simple and very clean. I just thought it came out so cute. But you'll see that as it comes together a little bit more here. As for the landscaping, I did keep that very simple as well. I actually didn't do very much. I did put down a couple of trees and a couple bushes just to, you know, give it a little something. But once again, I wanted this to be very simple, very clean. Um, this is actually one of my favorite parts of the patio was the fire pit because I didn't actually have room for it. So I had to scoot it off the edge of the lot a little bit, but I was determined to keep it. So she stayed and she gets to live in this house in all of her glory. So, um, as you can see, I'm just adding some final details to the outside, both the front and the back, just putting some terrain paint down before I decide to move to the interior. Which, honestly, as also simple as it is, was the biggest challenge of this house because I think the outside came together quite nicely, but the inside is just so small that it took me a little bit of finagling to figure out exactly what I wanted to do. I cut most of that out, so it looks very clean. It looks like I just magically figured it out right away, but that was not the case, unfortunately. But all in all, it did come together quite nicely, and I'm very proud of it. I think that I made good use of the space, and I think that I left enough space that it doesn't feel as tight as it is. So I think I found a good balance there. Now we're just putting in the living room, and I really like the living room. I think it's just so cozy and warm, and I really wanted to go for a more bright vibe on the inside. And here's the part where I realized I didn't have lights on the inside. I'm so sorry, guys. I feel like I do this every single build, but I forget. I start building on the inside, and I realize eventually once I put something down that, oh, I can't really see what I'm doing. Why didn't I put any lights down? So that's kind of what happened there. So apologies, but Hopefully it's not too annoying. Anyway, so as you can see, I'm just adding some more details to the kitchen to make it look a little bit more lived in, just because I really wanted to make it look lived in, but I didn't want to go overboard with the clutter because even though I wasn't too worried about money, I wanted it to be semi-budget friendly. So we didn't do too much with the clutter, but I did put a little bit of detail just to make it look more lived in. I always try to do that with my houses. I do tend to go a little bit overboard with the clutter, but even when I don't, I try to at least make it look like somebody lives there because that's my biggest complaint about EA's builds is they just they don't look lived in. They're too empty. There's not enough clutter, and I understand that they have object limits and that they're trying to make sure everything is performance friendly for every single computer, but I just wish they did a little bit more to make it look like the families that live in the houses actually live there. But that's just my 2 cents on the topic, so take it for what it's worth. Um, Finally, you can see I'm getting to the bedroom. And the bedroom in this house was actually quite a bit of a challenge. I didn't know what vibe I was going for. All I knew is that I wanted to use this bed because I really like this bed. And then I realized that the university nightstands and dressers matched the bed almost perfectly. So I decided to throw those in there, even though I don't normally use those swatches. I like the items, I do. I just don't use the swatches very often because I don't like the green so much. But I decided to embrace it in this one. And honestly, I think it looks cute. So now I'm just adding some final details to the bedroom, and I wanted to put a desk in there because there was no room anywhere else in the house for a desk. So I decided to make room for that. And honestly, I think that's a good spot for it. I was going to try to put it originally in the living room, but there was just no way it was going to fit. So I'm ultimately happy with my choice to put it in the bedroom. And lastly, we are doing my least favorite part of any build, the bathroom, which means we are getting to the end of this speed build. So while I add the finishing touches to this bathroom, I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to let me know in the comments. And also let me know what else you might want to see from me. And with that, I will catch you all next time. Bye, guys.